Welcome you all to this session of OA Week 2023. Thank you for joining us. As you can see, you're here for the OARS Ocean Acidification for Sustainability session. And I would just like to take a minute to introduce OA Week and GOA-ON. So GOA-ON is the Global Ocean Acidification Observing Network, and OA Week is sponsored by 3 agencies. The first is NOAA, the United States National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration. The second is the IAEA OAICC, which is the International Atomic Energy Agency Ocean Acidification International Coordination Center. And last but not least, the IOC UNESCO, the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission of the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. A brief note on GOA-ON. GOA-ON was established in 2012, with just a handful of members, and it's grown tremendously since then. We also currently have 9 regional hubs, and you will be hearing from most of them during this week. We encourage you to look at the OA Week schedule online to see when the other sessions are happening. We're currently in session 3, so we're just brand new and have only just started. And we'd also encourage you to join GOA-ON. The link is in the chat. So OA Week debuted in 2020 and returned in 2021 when events and conferences were postponed due to COVID-19. Following the successful in-person symposium on the ocean and high CO2 world in 2022, OA Week is returning in 2023 to maintain momentum around ocean acidification research and to provide a virtual platform for the ocean acidification community to exchange their latest findings. We're thrilled to be able to present a wide range of ocean acidification topics and speakers from around the world. I would like to point out that during the presentation, all participants are in listen-only mode. This webinar is being recorded. You're welcome to type any questions that you have into the Q&A box, which can be found at the bottom of your control panel on the right-hand side of your screen, depending on your setup. We'll be monitoring all of the incoming questions and we'll pose them to our speakers following the presentation. You can also use the raise hand function in the toolbox at the bottom of the screen, and we will then ask you to call your questions out personally. And with that, I would like to hand over to Amy Kenworthy, the new OARS project officer. Amy will be your moderator for this session. Amy, take it away.
Thank you, Kat. Hello, everyone. It's great to see so many of you were able to join this session, and I hope to work with many of you in the future. I'd like to say a special thank you, first of all, to the GOA-ON Secretariat and everyone who was involved in organising OA Week. Today, we're going to hear from our 3 co-leads about the Ocean Acidification Research for Sustainability Programme, OARS, which is a UN Ocean Decade endorsed program building on the work of GOA-ON. Aligned with the Sustainable Development Goal Target 14.3, OARS is dedicated to minimizing and addressing the impacts of ocean acidification through enhanced cooperation at all levels. 7 outcomes in support of this goal will help us deliver the information needed by policymakers and communities to best mitigate and adapt to the impacts of ocean acidification. So I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Professor Jan Newton, who will talk about GOA-ON and why the OARS program was developed. Professor Jan Newton is a senior principal oceanographer and affiliate professor at the University of Washington, co-lead of the OARS program and also co-chair of GOA-ON. She is a biological oceanographer with a focus on coastal dynamics and works to build ocean observing systems and assure connections to society with expertise in linking observations and needs across scales from local to regional to global for optimized science, and in doing so, engaging with partners for effective outputs. She's the executive director of NANOOS, the Northwest Association of Networked Ocean Observing Systems, part of USIOOS, a co-director of the Washington Ocean Acidification Center. Next, we'll hear from Dr. Kirsten Eisensee, who will introduce the OARS program and its 7 outcomes and some of the actions that are needed to achieve them. Dr. Kirsten Eisenseer has been a program specialist at the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission of UNESCO since 2012 and received her diploma and PhD in marine biology from the University of Rostock in Germany. Her work focuses on ocean carbon sources and sinks, trying to distinguish the natural and anthropogenic influences on the marine environment in support of the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, contributing to the achievements of the outcomes of the UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development. In addition, she oversees the production of the Global Ocean Science Report and supports the publication of the State of the Ocean Report. Finally, Professor Steve Widdicombe will speak about the future of OARS, what our next steps are towards achieving these 7 outcomes, and most importantly, how you can join us in tackling ocean acidification. Professor Steve Widdicombe is the Director of Science at Plymouth Marine Laboratory, where he oversees research for a sustainable ocean future. He is a highly experienced marine ecologist with a 30-year career focusing on marine ecology, climate change, biodiversity, and ecosystem function. He's a key figure in understanding ocean acidification, co-chairing the Global Ocean Acidification Observing Network, GOA-ON, Executive Council. Steve also co-leads the UN endorsed program OARS and contributes to high-level policy discussions at events like the UN climate change meetings. As mentioned, we'll have time for an open discussion and any questions after the presentation, but I will now hand over to Professor Jan Newton. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy, so much. And thanks to all of you who have joined us today. And greetings to you in whatever time zone you are. And thank you for joining us. It's my pleasure to kick off this presentation that we have for you about Ocean Acidification Research for Sustainability, or OARS, and to share with you our decadal vision for OA research to sustainably manage our ocean. I'm joined by Kirsten and Steve, as Amy mentioned, and we'll be tagging along. So to start off, GOA-ON, the Global OA Observing Network, was formed in 2012, and it was really from the international science community that this was formed grassroots style and then has really taken off. The reason for that is because the global problem needs a global effort. As OA exhibits itself in the world ocean, we also know it plays out differently on shorelines. So it was important to come together to define how we would have this global OA observing network. In 2023, only 11 years later, we are now almost 1,000 scientists from 114 countries and territories. But I want to point out that of that population, more than 140 members are from 24 different small island developing states, or SIDS, which translates to 12% of the membership. GOA-ON is fundamentally dedicated to building capacity throughout the world. Next slide, please. So our goals are threefold. The first is to improve our understanding of global OA conditions, to understand what is the signature of OA in the world ocean. The second is to improve our understanding of the ecosystem response to OA. So that is on individuals as well as populations, trying to understand how the ecosystem is responding. And the third is to acquire and exchange data and knowledge that is necessary to optimize modeling for OA and its impacts. We need the ability to create forecasts and predictions that will allow us to respond and to take actions accordingly. Next slide. Okay, so as we did this, we realized that while it was incredibly important to unite as a global community to set goals, to set practices, to set common ways of implementing, it's also really important to organize on a regional scale, because that's where you're talking to people within your own region. And so regional hubs have been a characteristic of GOA-ON for a while now, and we are up to 9 hubs with kudos to the newest Caribbean hub, who's still working on their logo, and to the Southern Ocean hub that is in formation. It's through these regional hubs that people come together, set priorities, network, help others within the region have capabilities that are necessary. And so regional hubs are a really critical way that the actions can happen, because not only do we have the scientists united, they can connect with their leaders and decision makers in the lands. Next slide, please. So when the United Nations conceived of the decade of ocean science for sustainable development, GOA-ON was right on the forefront to respond. And so GOA-ON leadership and several others drafted a proposal that defined what we would do for ocean acidification for research for sustainability. We wanted to foster the co-development of OA science, including the impacts on marine life and sustainability and across all of the ocean environments, including estuaries and coasts. And in June of 2021, the UN Decade endorsed our program. And so we have laid out a roadmap, a vision to be able to deliver OA science that we need, as the saying goes, the science we need for the ocean we want. And so with that, I'll turn it over to Kirsten for the next part of the story. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Jen. And so moving directly to this, we have the OARS plan, we had this proposal in 2021, but indeed to be able to deliver the OARS benefits and vision and to define that, we need to take a step back again and really try to identify what do we want the future to look like and how do we get there. So meaning define the outcomes, impacts and benefits, and what would be the activities, outputs, engagement, inputs and enablers required to achieve these outcomes, impacts, and benefits. And for that, we used an approach following the theory of change. And next slide, please. Next slide.
Sorry, it's stuck.
So I start with the next slide, just talking about it. So following a theory of change approach, and I guess many of you are familiar with that. So we looked first, like, what do we want to achieve as ultimate benefits for OARS? Of course, a cleaner, more resilient, healthier ocean which continues to deliver the ecosystem services humankind requires. And what is the impact we need before to actually achieve that? So changing behaviors, having a sustainable observing and monitoring in place, contributing to the different SDGs. And this is only, of course, possible if we have the right outputs, conducting the right activities, and also have the right engagement, and based on input from different stakeholders, different from the individual time commitment as well to funding, and also having the right awareness and capacity and so on. But this is more a general overview. But to really move ahead, we then went to our 7 outcomes, which we defined right from the start in 2021. And there we have these 7 outcomes really covering the whole value chain from science to action, including quality data, the co-design of engaging with different stakeholders in developing the right observing strategies to observe the biological impact, to improve our future projection of ocean acidification, increase the public awareness, and of course, and hopefully result as well in policy engagement, and not only engagement, but also change. So for that, we have these 7 outcomes. And as mentioned over the past year, we took a step back and actually have now engaged with OARS champions and OARS working groups for each of the 7 outcomes. And all of them developed a white paper, which is a draft is already available on the OARS website, and I think many of you read them already and engaged in the review, and we will publish the final version later this year. But across these 7 outcomes, and I will come to some more detail in a second, it's clear that what we need is enhancing regional collaborative efforts. There's a requirement for coordination of capacity building in science. We need to co-design and co-implement observation and research to address ocean acidification, and also apply communication and the delivery of these outputs to policymakers and local communities. So, but let's start, which hopefully also makes it for you a little bit easier to identify where you could engage in OARS, because OARS is a framework, but the implementation requires everybody of us. And Steve will say a few more words about that, but let's go to the meat of what OARS hopes to achieve and deliver. So the first outcome, the global science community will be equipped to provide a high quality, high quantity, and high resolution ocean acidification data needed. For that, we, the co-champions and working groups of Outcome 1 had a range of outputs and activities listed, including wider systematic accessibility to community of best practices and calibration protocols, because this is still one of the issues we see missing. And so as well, having related training and monitoring and support in workshops. For Outcome 2, next slide, please, which focuses more on the co-design between the scientific community and the information users. Hopefully, specific data and evidence needs for mitigation and adaptation strategies from local to global will be clearly identified and provided. So for that, we envision to have a rubric, so kind of a scheme for broadly categorized data and evidence with possible application across the different scales, so that if we have that problem, what kind of measurement do I need? What kind of information do I need? And then hopefully as a result, we will also co-develop OA monitoring that have discrete management or adaptation applications, so that we really engage in this dialogue of the scientific community providing the scientific guidance, but also the users to apply the knowledge obtained. The third outcome, also key really to achieve ocean acidification research for sustainability, so really to have that, is making use of existing observing system and really to achieve long-term ocean observing systems that will be co-designed and implemented by scientists, funders, and end-user partnerships. So again, very much related to 2 and to 1, and so this is how this there's a thread to all these outcomes. They all depend on each other. So what we hope to achieve as well, and hope to conduct as well, are multi-parameter coordinated monitoring programs, so that it's not isolated, that people measure or observe changes in phytoplankton, zooplankton, oxygen, and pH, but that is rather a coordinated effort, that we have low-cost and reliable underwater sensor arrays for many parameters, and this is still a huge package of work, I think. And again, best practice and calibration protocols, something already mentioned in 1, but it again also super relevant for Outcome 3, and workshops really putting together these different pieces of the puzzle from 1 to 3 already is important. Next slide, please. But quite often we stop at talking about the ocean acidification, physical parameter, how does chemistry change? But in the end, what we care about is as well, like, how does the marine life change, and so what many, of course, communities as well depend on. And so outcome 4 is concentrating on the impacts on marine organisms and ecosystems. And for that, there are plans to really have a comprehensive inventory of observing programs and strategy to integrate biological and chemical observations together. Again, best practices, a key to actually compare as well the data globally and regionally, and having, again, a priority there, because of course we would like to observe everything, but it's not possible always. And so really an evaluation as well. Where do we have some capacity in biological observation, and where are now priorities to develop this, because it's really, we see a change, but it can't be explained. So then go to the next outcome 5, really focusing on the predictions. How can we improve our predictions and make them more relevant as well? Very much, again, relates to 1, 2, 3, 4, but I think particularly as well too, like having something, having new models and data visualizations and interpretation methods for ocean acidification, which help the communication, but also the adaptation and mitigation in the future, and having this integrated into, for example, day-to-day weather information. So like a vision is still that we might have an app like we have our weather app, an app which also includes some ocean acidification. And again, having workshops on developing these best practices to and for forecasting and prediction will be key to actually be able to then also have this applied on a more technical level, because we need still the data to verify our models, and that is then important to compare across different regions and across different temporal and spatial scales. And then let's move to the last 2 outcomes. Outcome 6. This is really like all this data and information is still useful, and hopefully we will also be able to engage with the stakeholders for whom this information is relevant. But what we also would like is that that everybody is more literate on ocean acidification, and for that several activities are envisioned, like documentaries, animated short films, an education website, but also they're engaging with other programs such as the Ocean Literacy program within the decade. So there are many opportunities where we can, I think, and hopefully as well with you as a very diverse audience, can engage and identify possibilities to for future activities. And lastly, but really not at least, important is to have countries and regions will routinely include measures to reduce ocean acidification in their respective national legislation. We have ocean acidification recognized in many international frameworks, like SDG, like the Sustainable Development Goals, the Convention on Biodiversity, in the UNFCCC, but this also to provoke change. This needs to translate in national legislation, and so within the OARS framework, we also hope for inventory on the different national assessment assets which include ocean acidification, and also a network of policymakers which can then also help to exchange on approaches which were successful, and hopefully as well again have a training. And while this seems still a bit repetitive, but having the right capacity at all these different levels is important to really provoke change. And so we hope that that this very brief overview of the 7 outcomes kind of also gave you a little overview of what we plan to do, and hopefully also provoke some interest on your side to engage further. And on how to do that is now will be introduced by Steve. So I hand over there.
Okay, thank you very much, Kirsten. So thank you very much to Kirsten and Jan for introducing where OARS has come from, what has been achieved so far, and it's down to me to start to talk a little bit about where we need it to go. Now, I think we all of us will agree that if we're successful, and as a community we do deliver against those 7 outcomes by the end of the ocean decade, the ocean will be a far better place. But equally, we shouldn't be in any doubt about the challenge that delivering on those outcomes will face. I mean, clearly, through GOA-ON and through other networks as well, there's a whole host of skilled, enthusiastic people on this planet who would be well placed to deliver that. But equally, it still needs more people. So part of the role of OARS will be to generate greater capacity in terms of human capacity in helping to be able to deliver against those outcomes, because it's going to be a truly sort of ocean community-wide effort. So one of the 2 things we need most, people. So we've talked a lot about people, but I'm also going to talk a little bit about structure and governments and the ability to focus efforts in the right direction. So with this slide, we kind of summarize a little bit about some of the activities we've already done to start to publicize OARS and to generate the kind of interest in the activity, and also some of those activities that are coming up in the near future. So things like UNFCCC COP events, but also the UN Decade Conference in Barcelona next year, that will really start to galvanize the community to come alongside and join OARS and start to develop delivering those things that Kirsten outlined in her slides. Next slide, please, Emmy. But I talked about the other thing we need is structure. How do we target all those great skills and enthusiasm and effort of those people who are part of the ocean community, who wish to be part of delivering those outcomes by the end of the decade? The way we've approached this is to create a model which resembles an onion for each of the OARS outcomes. So we can consider each of the 7 outcomes, and at the heart of that outcome, there is the core, which is a series of co-champions who will take responsibility to lead on generating the enthusiasm, the energy, the actions, the activities that are going to happen around that outcome to deliver that outcome. Supporting them in this will be outcome working groups, where we hope to bring in skilled and interested people to supplement the activities of the co-champions. But even beyond those layers, there are other opportunities for the ocean community to engage, whatever your role is in the ocean community, whether you're just bringing some expert specialist knowledge into a particular outcome, whether you're delivering on projects which support that outcome, or whether your stakeholders looking to use information from that outcome, or funders looking to fund projects and activities within that outcome. So there's a place for everyone. Every part of the ocean community can find a place within OARS, and particularly focus around the outcomes that they feel their skills are most aligned to. And that doesn't mean to say you just have to choose one outcome. You can be contributing across multiple outcomes, and we welcome you to do so. Next slide, please. So with that sort of governance in place, there's a clear direction of travel. The white papers have set out the kind of activities we really want the community to be delivering. So the question now becomes, as an individual, as an organization, as a department, whatever, how do you become involved, and how do you bring your skills and your effort, your enthusiasm, your energy, your time to make sure that these outcomes are delivered? I would like to lay out 3 ways in which you can immediately become a contributor to OARS. Next slide, please. The first one is to become a member of those working groups. And becoming an outcome working group member gives you an opportunity to sort of direct the future, direct the direction of travel that we want to see actions and activities take place. So the working group will be there to help help people to implement the white paper recommendations. Also to provide guidance to projects and actions on how to effectively achieve the desired outcomes. So it's about engaging with the community, those people who perhaps require a little bit of guidance to understand how their particular skills and expertise can be best directed towards the kind of things we need to deliver a particular outcome. But equally, those working groups, we look to them to actually take on activities themselves. So for example, if there are more publications that need to be created, are there white papers to be written, are there sort of discussion groups to be pulled together? We hope that the members of those working groups will be those people to drive that and provide the impetus to do so. And really importantly, it's an externally facing role as well. It's about engaging with the ocean community in the widest possible sense, to inspire people, to make people aware of the OARS objectives, and to encourage people to use their skills to undertake those activities that will allow us at the end of this ocean decade to look back on those outcomes and realize that we're now in a place whereby those outcomes have been delivered. So how do you go about becoming a working group member? Well, the application is relatively simple. We would just request that you send a short letter of intent, motivational letter, outlining what it is you would like to do, your skills, how you think you can contribute to a particular outcome working group, and a very short CV, and send that to the secretariat at GOA-ON.org, or you can send it to the secretariat OARS.org, OARScommitments.org, which is another website, another email address we'll see later. Either way, we'll get the information and then we'll be able to process it there. So don't be shy. If you feel you've got skills, you've got time, you've got the enthusiasm to be part of an OARS outcome working group, do please consider an application. And we're not just looking for sort of senior researchers or senior people. We're looking for people right across the spectrum, from all parts of the world and from every career stage. So please don't be shy. Next slide, please. As part of the UN Ocean Decade formal setup, there is an opportunity for those of you who are designing or running or implementing large projects or actions to have them formally endorsed and have them recognized as activities that are contributing to the OARS program. That is a formal process through the United Nations Ocean Decade. Currently, 11 such actions and projects have been endorsed and aligned with the OARS program from Germany, Canada, Norway, the US, and Japan. If you are in a position where you have a large program, either about to start or in formation, and you are keen that it gets the visibility of aligning with not only the UN Decade, but also with the OARS program itself, please do talk to us. We're happy to guide you and advise you on how best to get through the endorsement process, and also to make sure that your project is well aligned to the OARS outcomes, which gives you the greatest amount of success to be able to achieve that formal UN Ocean Decade endorsement. The benefits of doing so is you'll join the community of projects that are already endorsed, and you'll also be able to leverage on the Ocean Decade program itself and the OARS program to create greater visibility for the work you're doing. And also, it may well then help lead to greater follow-on funding, knowing that your activities are contributing to the greater program. Next slide, please. The third way in which you can join OARS today, commit to OARS today, is our voluntary commitment route. This is newly launched today. This is an opportunity for anyone, individuals, organizations, departments, groups, PhD students, any one of you, to be able to make a voluntary commitment to undertake activities that will support the delivery of the OARS outcomes. There is a website being formed, and if you follow the QR code on the screen, or indeed you follow the website address, www.oars-commitments.org, you'll be able to learn more about that. Effectively, it's a simple online registration form where you can describe your commitment of what you are going to do and how that will help deliver against yours outcomes. The reason why we ask the community to do this is not only because we want to recognize your efforts and we want to highlight your efforts and champion your efforts in delivering ocean acidification action, but we also want your efforts to inspire others to do so as well. Now, these are voluntary commitments, so please don't worry. You won't have the Ocean Acidification Police knocking on your door if circumstances change and for whatever reason you're unable to fulfill all of your commitments. We understand that things change. So, but this is an opportunity that is at a level slightly below the more formal endorsement through the UN decade, where you can showcase the activities that you are going to undertake to drive forward on ocean acidification research. So I would encourage everyone to have a look at the website, think about how the activities you are already undertaking or perhaps you would like to undertake can deliver against the outcomes, and make a commitment on that page so that everyone can see the work you're doing, be inspired by it, recognize it, celebrating it, and also perhaps join us all in providing a commitment of our own to be able to do that. Next slide. So that kind of brings us to the end of this whistle-stop tour of the OARS Ocean Acidification Ocean Decade Program. Hopefully what you've seen today will realize that all of us, no matter the scale of our contribution to ocean acidification research, can contribute and can be recognized for our contribution. If you have any questions or just want to reach out to the program, there is an email address there, OARS, secretariat@oars-commitments.org. We really would like to hear from you, talk to you, explore ways in which you can join into OARS and be part of the delivery team. You can find us also on various social media channels. Next slide, please. And I would also turn your attention to a number of other OARS-related webinars during Ocean Acidification Week, focused around specific delivery of some of the outcomes themselves. So for example, OARS Outcome 7 and Policy on the 31st of October, the creation of quality data in delivery of OARS Outcome 1 on the 1st of November, and biological impacts of OA OARS Outcome 4 on Friday. So with that, I'd like to thank you for your time and listening to us today. And also, I think we will now open the floor to answer any questions you may have. Thank you very much for your time.
Great, thank you very much, everyone. Would anyone, I can't see if anyone's got their hand up and would like to start asking anything, or maybe we have some questions in the chat.
There's some in the Q&A, actually.
Great.
Yeah, and I already answered one. That's to Urias Taylor, who asked about the strategies of GOA-ON to strengthen capacity. And so I typed out an answer to you, Urias. There's several opportunities, as you'll see, just being involved in your regional hub, peer-to-peer, the OA information exchange. And by being a member of GOA-ON and your hub, you'll get communication about workshops and other trainings that may happen during the year. So please stay in touch and let us know if you have any further questions. So I don't know if anybody has anything to add, but I thought that was useful to answer online.
Yeah, otherwise I can just jump on the next question, anonymous attendee, if OARS ought to consider some mitigation approaches such as alkalinization. So for OARS and also GOA-ON more broadly, we are looking at it from what will be the impact on ocean acidification and how ocean acidification might also impact these approaches. So it is more in that regard. There are many groups out there who are directly addressing marine or ocean CDR. We have a GOA-ON working group as well on ocean CDR, really looking at how the ocean acidification community should engage within the OARS outcomes. It is, of course, as well, especially in outcome 1 and outcome 3, in having the data required from our side, we can deliver from the ocean acidification side for these type of interventions, whether it makes sense or not, what the impact on OA is, and also, of course, like co-designing, or co-locating, that we have the right measurements, observation in place when they're local and more broader tests, and how, if that is possible, and how to do it. So that is how we approach it at this point. Happy to as well engage with you further if you want to type in your name. But so that is how we address it at this point.
I think just to jump in there,
yeah,
I'll just jump in there. I think Kirsten has got it spot on. It's not something we are directly sort of engaged with, but we are very well aware that in order to fully consider, the risks, benefits, rewards, opportunities associated with things like carbon dioxide removal technologies, then many of the outcomes of OARS will be highly relevant to that process. So we are going to need to be able to deliver high quality carbonate chemistry data to the community to be able to make evidence-based decisions or policies associated with CDR. Equally, we're going to need to understand how changes in carbonate chemistry affects biological processes in order to best advise and develop strategies that are designed to reduce carbon dioxide.
And I'll just add very briefly that one of the things that the GOA-ON and OARS science community can do is make sure that any experiments that do take place don't affect any long-term time series, because that's really important to preserve. Otherwise, we lose our signal of the variation. Thanks.
Just jumping on to the question from PB, and I know Jan will definitely come in on this, because this is something she is an expert on. But from my perspective, this is very much around ensuring that we adequately expand the ocean community that we are involving within OARS. Although OARS was generated from GOA-ON, we are conscious that GOA-ON itself cannot deliver to the full ambition of the OARS outcomes. It's going to take the whole ocean community to be able to do that. And indigenous and local communities are such a fundamental key element of the ocean community. It is essential that we look to find mechanisms by which they can be part of these activities and actions. But equally, I would also say that OARS itself, whilst providing the framework, is not going to be the arbiter of what is good practice or what is good ways of doing this. We are looking to experts. PB, I know you work very much with local communities. We'll be looking to understand how we can support you in your activities in bringing these stakeholders into the conversation. Jan, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, it's a great question. Thank you, PB. I think the key is that when you think about indigenous and local communities, they're the communities that have been observing the ocean in many cases since time immemorial. So there's a lot of knowledge there. having said that, just even in the state of Washington, where I'm based, one tribe is very different than the other tribe. And so what it really takes is conversations, partnerships to understand what our shared information needs, so that then people can design how to do that together. What we don't want is where, it happens like, oh, here's some information. Is this what you need? The co-design, the co-producing is really critical. But recognizing that it's a two-way partnership, and each of those partners holds great power in terms of the information and the knowledge that they hold. So just encouraging that more. I know, there's only 24 hours in a day, but I've definitely felt a lot of benefit from angling my own research and inquiry to working with Indigenous partners and learning a lot from that. So I think it really happens on many levels, but one is very individually, and then two is using our voices to articulate to funding agencies and others how important that is and the benefits from that. Thanks, PB.
If we move on now to Jason's question around the OARS committee's working groups, they predominantly, due to the global nature of the work that we're talking about, they will predominantly be online. They will be supported by the Secretariat and the co-champions. So I would hope that everyone has equal opportunity to access the working groups, and we are well used to dealing with global groups, and we do try to minimize the pain on any one particular group depending on their time zone. So where you live in the world should be no barrier to nominating yourself and contributing.
Yeah, maybe just to add, and I think, of course, also the more we move on in the implementation now, and not only thinking about what we want to achieve, but really doing it, and with the support of the OARS working group. So there will be hopefully plenty of opportunities as well at different gatherings to at least get a subset together and to brainstorm more concretely. And I might directly jump on the next question by Anvesha. Because you say high quality data indeed in outcome one, but it's not. It's more about data of known quality for the purpose we need. So it is really that when you want to have an idea in your coastal area, you probably don't need to have it to the digit, 10,000 digits correctly, because there are a lot of coastal influences, but to train on different instrumentation to get a first idea about natural variability in your coastal areas, for example, it's more that you know what you measured and how you measured to be able to compare the similar data sets in other regions. And so it's the high quality is more to be understood in terms of like, I know what I did and I can compare to similar data sets. Of course, if you want to have a climate signal in the open ocean, that gets a little bit more tricky and also requires, as we also mentioned in particular in OR3, these sensors which one can handle and of a decent price, and to actually align there and develop these best practices, because a lot is not about the equipment, but it's also about the person behind the equipment. And if there are proper trainings, if there are proper best practices, step-by-step guides, SOPs, that will increase quality and the accuracy, because quality, there we then also mean accuracy and going back to the digits. So that all works hand in hand, but definitely as well, for speaking on behalf of IOC, the custodian agency for the SDG indicator, there it's about creating a capacity in country to get a first idea as well, and to then move on to develop the related adaptation and mitigation strategies, which are tailored to your local ecosystem. And for that, you need some measurements in your coast, which don't need to be climate quality maybe, but definitely where's the weather quality to in your area.
Yeah, I'll just add really quickly, the key, and then over to you, Steve. The key is to have defined data quality and to record that as metadata so that people know the quality limitations of that. And I think, well, over to you, Steve, and then I'll save my comment because it bears for the next question as well. Over to you, Steve, and then I'll come back.
Just a couple, just to highlight, actually the next OA week webinar later today is actually on sensors, so have a look at that. But also the UN Ocean Decade was about being transformatory. You know, I think about when I started doing ocean acidification experiments, I look back in horror, to be honest, of how I was measuring the carbonate chemistry system, and we moved on a lot. But if we're going to be really transformatory, we have to make sure that we're not only we're developing the technology in terms of the bits of kit, but also we're developing the people as well. So we're empowering people to take better and better ocean acidification data and being empowered to do that. So we need to be ambitious, and we need to be talking to a variety of stakeholders, talking to the companies that build sensors, talking to and not only getting sensors developed from, it's great, they're really fantastic working on a bench here in a fully equipped lab, but actually getting them out into the field and being reliable and robust, and just moving forward on increasing the quality of the data that everyone is able to collect. So yeah, as the Ocean Decade, it's transformatory. How are we going to get there? And that's part of what OARS is about, calling on capacity building and technology advancement and bringing it to a point where we can empower people to be able to collect their own data, the data they need, that will then allow them to make the decisions they need to make. Back to you, Jan.
Yeah, that's exactly the thread I wanted to pick up on, is that it's only, I think, through something like the decade and the focus on OARS that we're able to make enough noise, to mobilize enough to say that, hey, there's more resources that need to get dedicated in order to build the capacity that we need, in order to build the kind of sensors that don't take, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars to maintain. And so that's really the voice that we are trying to project. So that's why this is so important for us to join together and get that groundswell and to be a bit more focused on how we deliver that message. And so, Urias, to answer your question, unfortunately, GOA-ON does not have resources. We are, aside from the Secretariat members who are partially funded through their institutions, we're all volunteers. And so there have been projects, as you mentioned, you had a peer-to-peer scholarship and got the opportunity, which is fantastic. And now you want to bring it back and replicate that in Liberia. I wish we had funds. I wish we had funds to be able to grant to that. But I know that there are some potential trainings in Liberia through IAEA. I don't know what those opportunities are, but you know, getting involved and letting us and OARS know about the needs that you have, because they're very similar to needs other people have elsewhere, and making that known through OARS is the best we can do, because we simply don't have funds. And I don't know if anybody else would like to add to that.
Well, I'll just jump in to say it's really important that we know what the community's needs are to be able to get there, because what the Ocean Decade does do, as Jan says, it makes a lot of noise, and it means people start to listen. So what I've noticed is that since the start of the OARS program, is we've been able to have conversations with people that we wouldn't have been able to have previously. So it's important that we use OARS to reflect the community's needs, and to make sure that the resources required to deliver those outcomes is focused in the right areas. So work with us to help identify those needs. And we promise to use the leverage that we can get through OARS to try and access those resources to ensure that we can start to deliver against the outcomes. Kirsten, did you want to come in?
Yeah, just quickly, and thank you, OARS, again for your follow-up question and your idea linked to IAEA. I think it's good with the IAEA, with the Ocean Foundation, and partly as well, IOC, their content development on defining training, but also to where to do the next training. And there are some plans in Africa, and I think it's just it's good to know about that, and also to then we can discuss how to best support you in the framework and with the limited resources. So we try to actually put these together from the different funding sources to actually make more out of it. And our colleagues from the OARS are also here listening in, and I'm sure they will follow up as well. So I think we are at the end of the hour, right? So
yeah, are there any more questions? Anyone? If not, then I think we'll wrap it up there.
Can I just finish? Yeah, I'll just finish. So please don't feel shy. You will have skills which will be exceptionally valuable to OARS. And we really want to hear from you. We want to talk to you and discuss ways in which you can be part of the OARS community and help deliver against these outcomes. So do contact us, do reach out to us. We're here to work with you to help deliver the OARS outcomes. So we look forward to hearing from you.
I see there's one question that just popped up. In accordance with the commitments to sustainable development, what would be the government scientist commitment? Yeah, obviously you can't write a commitment on behalf of your government. So I'm not sure how someone would handle that.
It depends. I think it depends on what your restrictions are. But what I would suggest is even if you can't write a formal commitment, you can still commit yourself and think about what you're going to do to deliver OARS. Now, it may well be that you can talk to your department or what have you. And I know a number of governments, we're already talking with a number of governments who themselves are going to make commitments through this process. So talk to your colleagues, see what you're doing, but reflect on where the OARS outcomes want to go. And think about the work you're doing. So, for example, if you are writing biodiversity relevant action plans for your nation or marine protected areas or what have you, think about how you might use ocean acidification evidence and knowledge to make those plans better and implement them for the protection of biodiversity. And in doing so, it will deliver against some of the OARS outcomes. If there's anything you're not sure about, again, reach out to us, talk to us, and we can discuss with you what would be appropriate, what wouldn't be appropriate. And again, the final decision will always be yours. So we want you to make commitments that you're comfortable with. Kirsten, I can see you want to jump in.
Yeah, just very shortly. I think for these commitments, of course, we want them to be ambitious, like OARS is ambitious, but we also want that they're feasible. So having commitments we can achieve together, we can contribute, work towards together. That is, I think, what we are aiming for. And so we will being ambitious as we can while still being reasonable in what we can achieve and going step by step. And I think that is where we are now. Implementation is a step approach, and we won't be doing everything, but we still have a few more years. So we should start now, and then hopefully it can be a bit bolder at the end.
Yes, join our working groups. Those are open to all, and just be in touch with your individual government organization and see what they do or don't permit you to do. And so anyway, thank you for that. Good question. And thanks to everybody for joining us. This has been great. You've heard our call for your involvement. We think this is critically important given the continuation of carbon emissions. And so there's an urgency here. So thank you. Thank you for joining us.